Hello once again. We are back. This is, I believe, going to end up being part 6 of this tutorial. So last time we added in our waterfall, our water, our little lake here, and did some more work building the landscape up, rolling it up into the mountainside. And this time it is going to be time to actually properly place some foliage. So back in, I believe it was the first or second episode, I showed you guys some of the things we've added that we're going to be using today. So we've got this interactive open world foliage, some temperate vegetation here. And I'm also going to pull from this other auto landscape material, some of the tree meshes and things like that. I actually really liked out of that one. So we're going to go ahead and swipe a little bit from that. So we're going to just kind of jump right into it. This should hopefully be a shorter part of this tutorial, but very important one. So anyways, what we're going to do is up here, I already selected it. We'll have our foliage mode open. And then we're going to go ahead and in our content drawer, we'll pop back into selection. And then reopen that up. I don't know where that went to, but that's fine. So we'll come in here. And actually, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'm trying to keep this one shorter. So when we first open our foliage tool, basically you've got all these tools here. The main ones you're going to probably want to know is just paint. So what paint's going to do, and you'll see as I add more in, it'll give you a gizmo, basically, that you can use to actually go ahead and just literally paint foliage onto the landscape. Single is going to be if you just want to place a single instance, so one tree, one cluster of grass, one single item. Fill is going to just kind of fill the entire landscape up with foliage. If you're trying to just kind of really quickly get something going, you can use that kind of in conjunction with the lasso tool or with the like select tool. You can select parts of the landscape, things like that, and then just kind of apply it and fill a whole area really quickly. Erase is going to be, just kidding, never mind. And you do that with the paint tool. And then you can select, say I've got a mixture of different foliages, trees, bushes, whatever, but I just want to erase a tree. I can just select just that tree in this menu, click erase, and then paint the area where I don't want there to be trees. And it'll leave the other foliage intact. And I'll quickly go through that and kind of show you guys that. But for now, we're going to actually load in our foliages. So the way you do that now, any static mesh can technically be foliage. So one thing you do want to watch for, and these obviously it's fine because this is just all foliage packs in here that we're going to want to go ahead and grab all of them. But in some packs, say there's like some different props and stuff like that. You can drag those in, maybe you want like some barrel props or like, you're going for an apocalyptic scene and instead of trees, your foliage is rusty barrels and that kind of stuff that you just kind of want to scatter, throughout the landscape. That's fine, but other times you don't want to accidentally drag in a building, and start splattering buildings everywhere. But you can always, even if you do, you can go in and just erase that. It's not a big deal. But yeah, so you're seeing me here. Sorry, I'm over talking my own self a little bit. Just go ahead and just click on your last one, and then I'm just shift clicking and selecting all of them, and then just dragging it in over here where it says drag and drop foliage. And you'll see a little bit of sputtering sometimes if you're, dropping in a lot at one time. And it doesn't always... you can also come in here and do that this way, but I honestly do prefer just to kind of drag and drop them in. I find that to be a little easier. There we go. Now they're all in there. And then I'm also going to grab from that other auto landscape material. Which one was that one? Let's check Fab. Which one was that? STF. Okay, so that's the one we want there. And foliage, and then so you've got all these different ones here. Instead of going through and clicking on each one, you can actually just click over here and sort by static mesh, and it'll just sort all of it into static, just by static mesh. And then same thing. So I'll just take, and I will go ahead and click and drop these in. And you know, sometimes you may, just for the sake of kind of having things be the same stylistically speaking, you may actually want to go in and just try a few different things out from each, you know, different pack you're getting and things like that. And we're getting a lot of stuttering here, so I'm going to click off of that before we have an unfortunate Unreal crash that seems to be plaguing me these last few days. We'll give it a second here to catch up to itself. And just make sure, you know, style-wise they match, or you know they're at least kind of close to matching. You know, that way you're not having just these huge variances kind of across your landscape. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually kind of start over this way. Now when we're setting these up, so you'll notice by default it automatically wants to click all of them. So we want to make sure that we aren't applying every single type of foliage. So same thing, we can go through, I believe, in here as well and just unclick them all. Yeah, we'll turn all those off. That way, you know, when we do actually, if you do click paint, it's not giving us anything because we don't have anything selected. So some options in here you'll want to probably be aware of. Grass and stuff, usually I like to keep aligned to normal on. But sometimes you may not want to align to normal. Like for trees, you're going to probably, and what that is if I come here, let me select a tree real quick. Scroll down here till we find one. Maybe if I just search, did they name them properly? Tree. Yes, they did. Okay. Let's find one. Don't necessarily want a dead tree. Okay, and then paint. Now this paint density is probably going to be insanely high. Yeah, so the first thing you might want to lower is your paint density, especially on trees. So you can see that it's like almost going to completely crash. Unreal. But you can see, so it's putting them in way too thick, which we don't want. But it is nice. Actually, looks like they already have some LODs set up for us, so that'll save us some time. But we're gonna actually go ahead and we're gonna just erase this. Just kidding. And you see how easy that is. It's nothing hard to do. But for trees, we'll drop. Actually, for now, let's just go single mesh so you guys can see what I'm talking about with the align to normal. So you see how at the moment, and it's a bit hard to tell. Actually, let's go and let's put one somewhere stupid. Let's say I pop a tree here. So you see how the tree is coming out of the ground at the angle that the ground is at. Now down here on a shallow angle, that doesn't look that bad, you know. But say I did want to, for whatever reason, want to have a tree, you know, coming out of the ground. And I don't necessarily, I want it to be more vertical because trees, you know, grow vertically. You can come down here and then just align to normal and then just click it again and it'll always be straight vertical. So that's all that tool does, is just make sure that no matter what, your tree's coming out of the ground. Now at extreme angles like this, you can kind of see you may have some issues there. with it actually kind of clipping out of the ground. If that happens, you probably will, unfortunately, need to come in here and mess a little bit some more with the Z offsets and things like that. So let's try, we'll say -10 for a Z offset, and we'll try that. Okay, so then now you can see, so adjusting the location by -10 just sticks it all the way into the ground. So just one extra little step you may need to go ahead and do. And you can play with that value too, you know, like if I just kind of want the top of a tree or something like that, you know, you can have them sunken down a little bit further into the ground. And the reason I'm getting this message up here, the non-nanite mesh, is just because these aren't set up for nanite, which for a tree is probably okay. You kind of want to use HLODs anyways. And one thing you do want to watch out for is, let's come over here and we'll go stat unit. And if you don't know, this is just how you pull up your performance. So you have your frame, and then we'll go stat frame rate, or excuse me, stat FPS, and we'll turn that on. So you see where your frame rates are at. So you can see as I get in on these trees, it drops the frame rate a little bit, and that's what's talking about the non-nanite overflow. So it's just saying you have nanite enabled. These trees are not compatible with nanite, and so it's going to affect your performance a little bit. And so the way we can fix that is actually by going in, and like I showed you with the grass, just messing with some of the shadow stuff. Now, for trees, you probably want dynamic shadows actually, because that unlike grass where it doesn't really matter, on trees it does matter. So just to show you kind of some of the differences, so if I disable dynamic shadow, on these, it's not even a contact shadow, because we would have to go in and actually adjust the contact shadow settings. I haven't set those up for this project yet. I may show you how to do that. Actually, no, I won't show you how to do that. Not in this tutorial, but that's a very easy thing to look up how to do. You just adjust basically how long the shadows are and stuff like that. It's basically built-in shadows instead of dynamic based off of lighting. But you'll see now as I come in on these, there's really no performance loss anymore, and I'm not getting that message. It's just because they aren't set up for nanite. So you can always go in and fix that. And honestly, it's not that big of a performance drop. I'm dropping about 10 frames a second. And that's before optimizing anything. So not a big deal. If this was for a gameplay environment, absolutely that 10 frames does matter. But for doing renders and stuff, as long as we're above 90, we should be doing, really above 60, we should be doing fine. But we'll go ahead and we'll erase these. And then some other things here, and we'll go back to the single instance. So for trees, like I said, I'd like to leave align to normal off. But for like bushes, grass, things like that, I do like to have it on, because grass will tend to kind of contour to the slope a little bit more than something like a tree would, you know, in real life. So just things to keep in mind. I just think that looks a little bit better. Some other things, collision presets. Sounds pretty simple, because it is. Just like on your characters, you can have collision settings for foliage. So right now I have no collision turned on. And if I come in here, and it's not going to let me because I'm in foliage mode. If I come in and I play from here, and we'll give it a second to load in. There's no collision. So I just fade right in through these trees. And again, it depends for me a lot of the time on what type of foliage I actually want to use collision and stuff like that on. So for a tree, for me generally, I would always want to have collision on for a tree, because I don't think it's that good for a player to just be able to walk right through a tree. So we need to go back and where are we selected? And find the one we have selected here, this guy. Okay, so coming back down in here, sorry, short break. So we're going to go ahead on any tree objects. So we'll go ahead and we'll just select all of these. And actually it's not letting me shift click, but that's fine. And we'll just make sure these are all clicked. Okay, so with all these selected, we'll come down here and we'll set collision to just block all. I think usually is best on trees. That way as well, you don't have to worry about, if you're building something like a shooter or something like that. Projectiles, bullets, enemies, with their pathing and stuff like that. They're not just gonna walk through trees. You can, for whatever reason, if you need, specific things to not collide with them. Maybe you want to have a player, have a certain weapon that can shoot through a tree, like a high-powered weapon or something like that. But again, way outside the scope on this tutorial. So we've got all these selected, and like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to leave dynamic shadows on for these guys. But for most of the rest of our foliage, we'll probably actually want to turn that off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and erase. And we're going to take, and it may be a bit hard for you to see, it's not that bright, but we're just going to enable just kind of the more green looking trees. So we're going to unclick, just click off of there real quick. Just the more green looking ones I think will be better. We don't want the brown because that's, more autumn. So I think that's good. And then we'll paint, and then the paint density. So we want to turn these down. Something very, very low. Like I like to start like a 0.05, and even sometimes I find that's too high. Yeah, so like in this case, again, way too high. And then you can see as well, and again, thankfully, they do have LODs, so you can see as we get closer, the definition kind of start to come in. We actually want to, no, we'll leave him clicked because we're going to erase that. But as we come out, the definition on the trees kind of drops down and our frame rate goes back up. So that's good. That means whoever put this out there, and I did notice that actually when I was using that auto material, that it did seem quite optimized. So that actually makes a whole lot of sense. But we need something much, much smaller. So we'll cut that into another 1/10 and try that and see how that looks. We still have erase put on. We'll paint. And so you can kind of tell, even before it's going to spawn in, how dense it's going to be just based off of the number. So this is actually telling you, how many instances of each you sort of have. And this is actually probably a lot closer. If I wanted a real more dense forest, I'm going to turn it down just ever so slightly, but that's pretty close. So I'll go something like 0.005, so we'll go 0.025. And then we'll see how that looks when we go to start painting. And then we don't want this dead guy. Okay, so those numbers look better, and then yeah, so now we're spawned in. And that looks, I think, to me, a lot better. Oh, actually, I lied. We need to go in and erase this one last time. I forgot to, on all of these guys, go in on each one and make sure that align to normal is turned off, because we do want that turned off on trees, like I said. We want our trees to go straight up. So that one was the one we were using. That one's already off. And we'll turn him off. And you as well. Okay. And now we will start painting. And I'm actually, since this is kind of our final go through here, I want to leave these ones in. I'm going to actually start with the trees a bit higher up. So I think that will do better because I want to leave this for some more grassy kind of meadows and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a much better density and probably a lot closer to what I'm going for with this landscape. And then we're going to have some medium and, you know, kind of some larger ground foliage as well. But that is a pretty healthy number. And then what we're going to want to do actually is just like we did on the grass, because you can see even with LOD, they never completely cull, which is not something you want. You do want them to eventually cull. And with trees in particular, they can be quite heavy performance-wise. So you want to be as aggressive as you can on those cull distances for trees. And then we'll come around here on this side in just a bit and do that. But I think that is a good, healthy amount. We may come back through a little bit more. And you can play with the number. You know, if I want to crank that up a little bit, I can always do that and just come back through and do another pass and turn up the intensity on that a bit. So say if I wanted to go like 0.04, and then what it'll do is it's going to leave the same ones in place, but it's just going to kind of fill in some more of the gaps and stuff like that with the trees. So you can see it just filling it out a little bit more, but it's not going to like start a whole new you know, second go over of them, so you're not going to be doubling or tripling the amount of trees you have. So just one thing to keep in mind, you know, if you want to just crank it up, you can. It's not a big deal at all. But so you can see here, when we get in kind of close on these trees, performance is starting to get a bit low, and that's to be expected, right? Basically, the way we want to counter that is a lot like what we did with the grass. So we'll just come here on each kind of tree, and we're going to come down here to where we got cull distance, so min and max. And again, your min is where it's going to start culling, and then max is where it's going to be completely gone, you know. So for trees, since they're so large, you know, and I like to actually, like, sitting somewhere like this is a good frame of reference, so I can see, you know, kind of how far away they're going to be. But we'll go in here and we'll control on all of these guys, since we're using all of them. And then come down here. Is it going to take it away? No, it's right there, right in front of me. So we'll say min. We'll call it 8,000. Yeah, see, so that's way too much. And then we'll crank a max out to, we'll do something like 30,000, something healthy. Okay, so that's way too much on the max as well. If we drop that down to 20,000. It's a little bit. We'll split the difference at 25 and see how we like that. And so as I'm doing that, you know, you can kind of watch the frame rate, you know, on the side, what's going on there. So if I take this down to back down to 8,000, and I hit enter, watch that frame rate. So you see it jumps a little bit, you know, and then same thing, take that back out to 25,000. It jumps a little bit, and then as I come in, you know, now your player's not going to be moving that fast, but one thing you want to keep in mind, you know, if you do have kind of a wide open space like this, is you want your cull distance to be aggressive enough to where some of the stuff is getting unloaded, right? So you can see here, I can still kind of see the trees, still kind of, now those ones at the very back are starting to cull out. And this is just for optimization, you know, so now I'm way over here, but the problem is, in a gameplay sense, right, a player may be over here, and there's no trees now. on that side, so it doesn't look right. So just keep in mind, and again, for just doing these renders and stuff, that's fine. But those are values you're definitely, when you're game developing, gonna want to keep in mind what those values are set to, especially if you're going really, really dense on things like trees and other foliage and stuff. You don't want those, like this grass. I can tell you I probably have it set too low, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to end up replacing this grass anyways with our own sort of custom foliage, because I'm not a super huge fan of how this grass looks anyhow. So actually I think I will do that really quickly. We'll go ahead and, because this grass is not that performant, we're going to go into our landscape and our material, and hopefully it should just let me unspawn grass, but we'll see if that works or not. Okay, and we'll see if that takes it out. No, so it didn't, and we saw that last time, right? It didn't really want to take it out. So if I unset all of those, we'll see if it, okay, so that got rid of it. So one of those did the trick there, and that's fine. And so our frame rates are better now. Still not the best in the trees. Again, we may want to, go in and actually tweak those. You could go in actually per static mesh. So the way you would do that is, so again, if I go to foliage, I search tree, and this is just a quick example. We'll grab this guy here because this is the most numerous. We'll click browse to it in the content browser, and we'll open it up. So you can try and just enable nanite and see what that does. A lot of the time, nanite with trees isn't going to work the best. So you'll come in here into these LOD settings, and instead of LOD auto, you'll come here and you'll just click custom. And then, so since this guy already set up the LODs, what we're looking at here, so if you see the screen size number here, basically you've got all these different levels. So the 0 is full quality. So if I come down here, so at a screen size of 1.0 or above, so if I zoom out to 1.0, so if I'm this close to the tree, I'm going to get full quality. Okay, and then LOD 1, so that's at 0.7. So if I back out to 0.7, you'll see that little drop in quality. Now on this asset, it's not that noticeable. On certain trees, it's going to make a big difference. So what I can actually probably do is we can have max quality come in. We'll get a little bit closer than actually I think 1.0 is probably fine, but we'll start this guy LOD1 out at something like 0.9. And then we're going to back down LOD2. 0.4 is probably okay. Actually, that's probably going to be pretty far out. Yeah, so that drop. So you can see that drop in quality. So 0.3 and then 0.5. 0.3. So you can see how how it starts kind of losing definition as we back out. And then LOD3 is at 0.2. And then 0.1 is LOD4. So there's almost nothing. So that's good. And then at 0.1, we go up to LOD4. And then 0.2. It's not a huge difference, so I'll actually bump that up to like 0.3. There we go, and then a little bit more comes in. And we'll go up to, we'll call it 0.6 on LOD2 and see how that looks. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. I think that's good. And so you would end up doing that on every different foliage mesh. I'm not going to go through all of these right this second, because and that's, again, you spend hours and hours optimizing your game. For renders, it's going to be fine. But that's how you would do that. So you just go in, you adjust the LODs. There's a lot of really good tutorials online on how to do that, that explain it a little bit better than I could. But basically what an LOD is it's adjusting the quality of your foliage the farther out you are. So you can see that the tree's not gone, it's just controlling how much of it's loaded in, how sparse it looks. And so you'll have some, like in my project, I have an LOD that actually goes all the way out to basically just the trunk, where there's no foliage at all. So when you're at, an extreme distance like that, there's still something there, but you can't quite see the foliage, like the leaves and the branches and stuff, until you get a bit closer. And that was a good compromise for me. But it's going to ultimately come down to you in your project and kind of what you need for your purposes. Now, going in and doing some more of these kind of medium foliage options here. So there were, I believe in here, we had some bushes and stuff like that looked pretty good, and that are kind of like a mid height. So we might use some of those. Grass bush, that kind of thing. Some of these. So a little bit more kind of some middle ground options. So if we search for a bush, and then same thing with these, we'll want to go ahead and click on all of them and just make sure we set up a cull distance. And on these, we're going to absolutely go in and turn off dynamic shadow. And we'll probably leave static and contact shadows on for those. No collision for bushes is fine. You can usually run through a bush. Cull distance, we'll go a little bit lower on these, so we'll start culling these at, we'll say 3,000, and then we'll finish culling them out at like 10,000. Okay, perfect. And then we'll come in here, and let's see how a 0.4 on a paint density. Oh, actually I lied. Let's get those because we are still have the trees selected. So we need to come in here and go to tree. And we need to unclick. And for the paint tool, it's these little check boxes. You want to be clicking and unclicking. That's telling it to apply it to the brush. So these, we want to enable all these now. And then we'll start painting and we'll see how that looks density wise. That's probably not quite as dense as I would like on that kind of foliage. So we're going to go in and we'll Control Z, and then we're going to actually turn the brush size down to like an 800. And then the paint density will go to like a, if it would stop doing that to me. It's been the last few days of that, wanting to add in extra zeros. And we'll try like a 0.4 on these and see how that looks. Okay, and that's too much, probably the other direction. So we'll go 0.2. We'll cut that in half. That's still a bit more than I would like. And just play around with these values, you know. Well, actually, let's go back to like an 0.5. And let's try that. That's a bit better. I do like that. And so these are just kind of your middle tier greenery, shrubs, and stuff like that. So these are mostly going to intermingle with the trees. And then here along the edge is where we're going to put in more of our flowers and our more traditional grass. So these will look good, I think. So we'll just kind of start painting these in, and then as soon as I release, it should start spawning them. Okay. And so yeah, so down at ground level, that looks good. And you can see, even though I really haven't optimized everything that much, we're doing okay. You know, 70, 80 frames isn't that bad. You definitely would want to do better than that but it's I've seen him played much worse. So we aren't doing too bad on the optimization and stuff there. Let's actually come in here and let's walk around this environment and kind of see how we feel about it. It's not too bad. We definitely need get the low grass in, and we'll want that at kind of a higher density. Oh, it was funny. We were stuck in the branch there for a second. But this doesn't look too terrible, you know. And even in a gameplay environment, it doesn't look that bad. It's a little thinner, you know, but depends, you know, springtime, stuff's coming back in. It depends on your environment and your setting, right? So just like I said earlier, build for what you're building for, you know. But you can see, so as soon as we're out of this forest, our frame rates improve, which is what you actually want to see, because what that means is our reduction settings are working. Our optimization, like the LODs and stuff on the trees, are kicking in. So we're out of there, and it's not affecting us anymore, which is good. That means things are kind of set up the right way, but you would just want to further optimize it. You know, easy little litmus test, you know, for this kind of thing. As I come here into the forest, my frame rates start dropping. So you can see frame, game, and draw there on the right-hand side. So the game time is nothing. Next, it's 6 milliseconds, which is phenomenal. That's because there's no code or anything in this game besides, you know, just the standard Unreal stuff. So it's extremely optimized. But the draw time at 12 milliseconds up into 13. Generally, you'd like to keep that below 10, and that's going to, you know, keep you in that 90 to 100 FPS range generally. But if I come here, I look straight at the ground now, so draws down at 10 because it's not loading in all the trees. As I look up at the trees, you see that immediate frame rate drop because the trees are again, like I said earlier, they're pretty extensive for performance. And same thing if I look up at the sky, you know, and run around 9 on the draw, which is where you want to be. You know, if you can get 100 frames, go for 100 frames. You know, anything anything above 60 is fine. And like I said, I'm on a mid-range. I'm not even on, you know, a crazy built PC. Have an i9 and a 3070 Ti, you know, and it's a 6-year-old PC at this point. And it, you know, so if I can get a consistent 70, 80 FPS, that's fair, you know. But if you can optimize it for more people, then optimize it for more people. Definitely take those steps. Anyways, so you're going to see me cut out here. I'll probably speed this up. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to take care of the rest of the mid foliage, and we'll build this kind of area up here around the lakeside and all that stuff. I may jump back in when I go to start doing the flowers and stuff like that, if there's anything else I need to talk about. But basically the flowers are going to get set up the same way as the bushes did, so we're not going to have shadow on those. Or excuse me, not dynamic shadow. We'll leave contact shadow off. I may just come through at the end and actually adjust the contact shadow, just so you can see. But yeah, you do that. You take your wherever your directional light is, and you go in the settings on that, and then there'll be a contact shadow length right here. So if I do that to something like 1. You'll see you want to probably something a little bit higher than that. But you would go in here and set that up, and I may do that at some point. But you can see, so it's kind of starting to throw the shadows there. It just does it at the base, and it just makes it look slightly more realistic. You don't want to go too high, though, on those, because then you get these weird kind of artifacts and stuff that start happening, which you don't want. So, you know, generally like a 1 or a 2 would be okay, just to give you some kind of a shadow coming off of these guys. But you would go in and you would just keep playing with that value. And there's a few different things, like world space units, intensity, all that good stuff. You can play with that, and that's just coming off your directional light, or really with any light you put into a level. You can adjust the contact shadow length off of it, and that gives you basically shadow priority between two different light sources. So if I had like the sun versus like I had a big spotlight on this area or something like that, you can play with those lengths, and you'll kind of have one start to overpower the other one. So just things to keep in mind there. But yeah, so I'm going to cut out. I'm going to go back into foliage mode, and we're going to keep going here, and I'm going to speed the rest of this up. And we're actually still getting some of that artifacting, so we'll actually go in and we'll turn the contact shadow back off until if or when I'm actually ready to set that up. So, and I will see you guys in a minute, and cue the montage. Okay, so I'm back. So looking at these flowers, these are actually very well optimized. I thought I was going to need to go in and do some pretty hardcore cold distancing on these, but the draw is almost non-existent on them. So I probably will still, especially if I was doing a game, would still go in and actually want to do cold distances. I'm sure once I start filling these areas in and these numbers start climbing into the thousands and tens of thousands, the draw may not, may not be that low, but these actually look surprisingly good, given how low the draw is on them. I'm actually quite impressed with that. So I'm just doing my initial pass through with the flowers, and then I'm going to come in with some more grass and get that going. But just wanted to give you guys that quick update. So I definitely recommend. For free, you can't beat it. It's pretty well done there. Kudos to the creator on these. So anyways, I will be back once again. Okay, so I'm back. You saw me do a few different things there, and it's probably going to all still be sped up footage. But basically, we went through, we added all of these. You can see the frame rates aren't the best. They're, 50, stuttering a little bit depending on where I'm looking. If I've got the flowers and the trees in, that's when it tends to be the worst. We're barely cresting 60. So I went in, I turned off dynamic shadows for all the grass and for the flowers as well. So that helped because we were down in the 40s, which even for renders is probably not acceptable for a frame rate. So we went in, we turned all that down, and now we're hovering in the 60s, which is okay. That's going to be fine for renders. For gameplay, that would probably not be okay. And the reason why we're struggling so much is if I come here and I do my stat GPU again, we turn that back on. So you can see here, so the Q total, what that means is that's obviously the most intensive process on us right now. So that's what's making our draw spike and therefore our frame rate spike. The Q total, that's just how many things am I rendering. So all that is, basically, to put it in layman's terms, is I have too many instances. So we've got two between the trees, the bushes, the different types of flowers and grass. There's too many things, and that's what's slowing it down the most. If I come over here and then now the Q total is nothing, it's 6. And my frame rates are significantly better. And then I come back over here and they drop right back down. So that's all that is. In a gameplay environment, this would probably be overdoing it. So what I would do is I would probably want to come in and actually go through and probably erase a lot of this and come back through just with a lower brush density, and spread this out a bit more. And that would make the biggest difference. And then also, going in, We do have the cold distances set pretty aggressive, but I probably could set them a bit more aggressive if I wanted to, and that would help with that as well. But you're going to start getting, diminishing returns. Really, would just be kind of thinning this out. But for the purposes of doing renders, that's totally, we're fine. It's totally okay with 60 frames a second to do renders. And it's probably going to drop a bit more because there's going to be a lot of, so I may revisit that because once I go in and actually build the town and stuff, there's going to be a lot more really high quality, high res textures that we're going to be using. And so I may still find that, no, I do need to go in and thin this out. And for renders specifically, I didn't need to go in and really even populate the whole map. I can focus on certain areas. Like if I want to have a shot at the base of this waterfall, I can just do foliage here for a render. For me personally, I'm of the opinion, I try to do renders in actual gameplay environments or approximations of them. I may turn up some, I might set everything to maximum, and maybe increase the foliage and stuff a little bit more than what you would actually see in actual gameplay. But, I do try to limit that because I really do. If I'm making, promotional material, renders, stuff like that, I want it to be accurate to the game. I want it to at least look similar to kind of the way the game would look and things like that. I don't want to completely overdo it just for renders and then kind of have the actual product itself be lackluster. I've never really been a big fan of that. But for the most part, for the landscape, I think this is mostly going to do it. We may make a few more tweaks next time as we kind of come in and start building out the town and stuff. Kind of the idea I had for that is I was thinking actually maybe sculpting this area up and having a tunnel. I think would be kind of fun coming out with a road out into the town, just to kind of make a little bit more sense. And I think this kind of block area here is almost perfect for that. I may bring this up, and just kind of flatten it out, but just kind of line it up and then do a tunnel there. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the next time. That'll probably be a couple days from now. We'll jump in and start doing that. But hopefully you learned, a little bit about the foliage tool and stuff like that. And we're going to grab her real quick and we'll move her over here somewhere pretty and scenic. And we'll grab a thumbnail real quick, because why not, Oh, she's way down in the ground. We don't want that. Actually, you know what? We'll just go ahead and we'll take her out. And we'll drag her back in at the correct ground level. And we'll rotate her. And this is just how I've been doing the YouTube thumbnails, so a little bit behind the scenes here. But we'll bring this in. And then if you didn't know, for Unreal, it's pretty simple. You can just go F11, and that'll take you full screen once I kind of get this framed how I want. We actually go in to do renders and stuff. We're going to be doing this with cinema cameras, but this is just for, just quick and dirty thumbnails and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and we'll grab that, and then we're just going to use our fancy little Windows print screen tool. Oh, actually, I lied. We're going to cancel that, and what we're going to do is we're going to, on F11, and we're going to turn stat FPS. No, that's not what I wanted. We'll turn stat FPS off, and we'll turn stat unit off. Okay, now we will full screen and take that screenshot. And thank you guys for watching this. Any questions? I know it was kind of just a quick basic sort of a rundown, but hopefully it taught you a little something. you know. And next time we get in, there'll be more tips and stuff too next time when we get into building this town area out. There'll be a few more things for you to check out there as well. But hopefully you enjoyed and you learned something, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.